Hello everyone, Tim Mikeska here from the Mikeska Brands Texas BBQ in a very warm Central Texas day, almost summertime. And in Texas, spring feels like summertime all the time. I'm here with I'm sorry I have a highway right next to me over here, so it's a little loud. I'm here with some beef cheeks. And what's interesting about beef cheeks is if you saw my interview with Daniel Vaughn in Texas Monthly, you will see that we talk about how meat has kind of come full circle from what I recall from the 50s and 60s, and prior to all that, up until about the late 70s, everything was fat and flavorful. Everybody wanted fat. And then something happened in the late 70s, and it went on all the way through the last 30 years up until about 2010, where everything became, in that period of time, from about 78, 79, all the way to about 2010, 2011, everything became lean. That's when tri-tip became popular. That's when fat trimmed briskets, very close trimmed briskets became popular. Very lean sausages became popular. All that stuff happened because that's what the consumer wanted, whether it was through marketing or through the diet craze or whatever. People thought fat was bad, but we all know fat is very flavorful. We've known that for, everybody knows that. Flavor and fat is what makes your palate happy. And so when I was a kid, my dad would cook these beef cheeks, and my mother would braise them. My mother had long before my mom and dad got together in the 40s, my grandparents had a very successful catering business right across the street here at the Taylor Country Club. And she braised beef cheeks into stews and into different things, and it was a very popular dish. She never told them really what it was, but people thought it was steak and people loved it. And then when I was a kid, I work over here at the country club mowing greens, and I'd come home after lunch, and my dad would come in around 1:30 or 2, and he'd always bring us something from the barbecue pit. So he would put these beef cheeks on in the morning, and then he would come back around 1:30 or 2, and he'd have it wrapped up in butcher paper with some brisket and some sausage. And I never will forget, I still believe that's the best barbecue I ever ate. When I would come home from being out there all day working, and then only 12 and 13 years old, and then getting to sit there with my mom and dad at lunch and eat all that meat as he unwrapped it from that butcher paper. Fond memories. But beef cheeks obviously comes from the head or the skull meat of beef cattle, and there's a lot of connective tissue in the head, and like my friend Andrew Zimmerman calls it gelatinous, heavenly gelatinous stuff. Well, there is some gelatinous stuff in the head meat, especially in pork. That's where we are able to make head cheese, head sausage with. But beef cheeks, this is actually a unique one because they peeled it off in one piece. This would be pretty much under the chin. They come in and pull them under the chin. But there's a lot of silver skin, there's a lot of connective tissue that needs to come off of these. Now what has happened is that these have become chic in Texas barbecue. That's right, they've become chic. They've been when I saw this about 3 or 4 years ago, people start doing beef cheeks and charging, $12, $13, $14 a pound. I just had to laugh because, I know they're good, but I just didn't think people would want them again, and yet here they are. They're coming back. So we're going to trim these down, and we're going to smoke these. And if you don't get this connective tissue off, for instance, all of this silver skin back on this, that really needs to come off. And you can see the marble in the cheek. And we're going to trim this down, and then we're going to put them on the pit. So bear with me while I trim this down. I'll show you what they look like afterwards. Okay, you can see from that previous pictures I just showed you that we've just trimmed off half of these beef cheeks. That was silver skin connective tissue. So our $2.84 a pound beef cheeks just became $6. So we're getting up into the ribeye range right now. So you can see why I think it's a little curious that people really are starting to enjoy this, because there's a lot you have to trim off. Now remember, there's 2 different ways to buy these things. I bought these at H-E-B in Taylor. They were $2.84 a pound, and they needed to be trimmed. You can buy them in bulk from a packer, and they're going to be a mess. They'll be all kind of pieces and things like that, and that's really a difficult way to get them. But if you can find you a butcher that does whole carcass butchery that can process these for you and trim them for you, you'll be a lot better off than doing it yourself, because it's not easy getting all that connective tissue off unless you have a very good knife and you know what you're doing. So we've lost about half of this product, So we now have about $6 a pound, and now we're going to put them on the smoker, and we're going to smoke them at about 200, and we've got oak wood in there. We're going to smoke them for about 220 degrees and see how they do at that temperature. There's two theories about cooking beef cheeks. Some people cook them like a tri-tip, to where they get them to about 148, 144, or maybe even a little bit lower than that, and they're rare and they're pink. They're going to be chewy if you do that. You need to pretty much cook them like a brisket. Get them to about 210 and get them to where they'll start breaking down and they've rendered themselves out. Something about seasoning. This is my seasoning, my Mikeska brand seasoning. You notice how dark it is? You see that? And you can see from this, the meat right there, how dark it is. That's black pepper. And you know, I go in, I see seasonings in stores all the time, and you know, I kind of laugh when I see the colors of them, because if you see these rubs that are red, a lot of red, or they allow a lot of, you know, white, or there'll be some speckles of red and black. You know, black pepper is the most expensive spice you've got, you know, when you do it in regards to barbecue. So many people now in Texas have just gone back to salt and pepper. 2 parts salt, 8 parts black pepper, 1 part salt, 6 parts, whatever you want to do, but it's mostly black pepper and salt. That's all you really need. This has a little bit of other stuff in it. This has some garlic and some red pepper in it. And if you go to my, if you just Google Tim Mikeska and seasonings, you'll see me with Bobby Flay creating one of my seasonings, and that's basically it. But black pepper is very important, and it's very important because I use a Talacherry black pepper. It's a very expensive pepper. That's a very good pepper. It's a coarse ground black pepper, and it has an amazing flavor, and that's what I use. So now, here we go. We're going to put these beef cheeks on, and we're going to get them to about 210 degrees. How long is it going to take? Well, it could take 3 hours. It could take 2 hours. We'll time it, and then I'll show you when we get done, and then we'll eat some smoked. Just really nice having a Southern Pride smoker and a lot of pecan and oak wood in my area here. This is in my driveway at my house. People see it, they said, "This is your barbecue pit?" I said, "Yes, we have these in our family." I don't know how many of these pits we have all throughout the family, but it's a wonderful way to cook. And there you go. You can see that pretty beef cheek right there. That's it. We're going to pit set for 210. It's about 214 right now. We're just going to let it go at that, and then we'll time them, and then we're going to stick a thermometer in them and get them right, and we'll go from there. So beef cheeks for dinner. Okay, here they are, and they've come out, and they were at, let me see again here where they're at. They were 209. Yeah, 205 right now. So let's take a look at these. And they're very tender. Wow. Look at that. How that just falls apart. Do it again here with the light on. Look at how soft that is. Look at that. There's your beef cheek. As you can see, there's some seams in this, and you're gonna have these seams, and but that's the gelatinous goodness, like my friend Andrew Zimmern talks about. There it is, and that's a total of 3 hours in the pit, then wrapped in butcher paper and held for another hour, all at about 210, 215 degrees. And then I wrapped them in foil. Yeah, I did the crutch and did the foil, and put them in my oven at 300 degrees for 30 minutes. And that really helped keep that moisture in. That's what you kind of have to do with beef cheeks. But they are very tender, and they are very flavorful. And as you can see, that's a pretty piece of meat right there. All right, that's our beef cheeks. Time to eat dinner. Okay, so let's look at this again. You can see the marble, and you can see the bark from all the great black pepper and the smoke and the salt right there. Isn't that pretty? And it is so tender. It really is. It just melts in your mouth. So let's review this. After I trimmed that from a $2.84, I lost half of it in trim. So that doubles that, right? Oh, it is so good. So after that, I put them in the pit at 214 degrees, right about the average, for 3 hours. And what did they lose? They lost 40 more percent. So that doubles that almost to the next level of to the point of being above ribeye steak. And then I wrapped them. After 3 hours, I wrapped them in butcher paper, put them back in the pit for about 45 minutes to an hour. And they were about 168, 170. And then I brought them in, I wrapped them in foil, I put a little bit of water inside that foil, and then I put them in my oven at 300 degrees for about 45 minutes. And that just rendered and finished them out right there. Can you put them on your pit and completely cook them that way? It just depends on what kind of pit you have. You know, remember, I don't use a stick burner. I know how to use a stick burner, but I don't use one. So I just don't know how that would work on a stick burner. I do know that that last 30, 45 minutes in that high heat oven, 300 degrees or so, right around there, and wrapped in that foil and put a little bit of water back into that. And you also use beef broth too. You know, my mother always said, never use water in anything. Either use chicken broth or beef broth in every recipe that called for water, unless it's a dessert, obviously. But you don't put that in cakes. But if it's a product that's meat related, never use water. Always use a chicken broth or a beef broth. My mother had always a broth somewhere. My grandmother too always had broth, you know, around, chicken broth for all that. So that last 30, 45 minutes in that high heat oven at 300 degrees really finished them out and rendered them into a tender state. Because when you first pull them off that pit, they look like hockey pucks. It's that last 45 minutes, you know, in that oven, or that, you know, finishing it and getting that fat to render within that cheek is what makes it all worthwhile. So anyway, it's Tim Mikeska here with Mikeska Brands Texas Barbecue, talking about beef cheeks, and this is going to be my dinner, and I'm very excited about it. If you have any questions, please attach it to this message on YouTube, or you know how to get a hold of me at Mikeska.com.